This is the frontal sinus, which is sort of pulsating with secretion. It's a small opening which I found, which was more or less T-nosed. I passed a bulbous tip suction. We connected to an irrigation, and let's irrigate and push out things. It's very tight, things are not coming out, so it's more or less blocked. Now I am pushing with force, and I am seeing some polypoid secretion, polypoid tissue. So most likely there is polyps inside which is blocking. So that shows we have to open out everything. This is the frontal outflow tract. We have already outlined with navigation and found out. Now we'll go to the roof and expose this whole roof. Cut, touch, touch. Flap, pedicled on the inferior turbinate, touch. Touch, touch, touch. Operated posterior. Let me elevate this and see. Must be the frontal pathology. You can see it pulsating. Pulsation is because it is exposed to the cranium cavity and the cranial pulsation is getting transmitted. So now that is pedicled on the lateral wall inferiorly, and we can keep it on the floor and take it up after surgery is over. Here. I think some more flap we have to create, otherwise it will get caught in the drill. This must be the maxillary sinus mucosa. I think I will stop here. If you want, you can cut this maxillary sinus mucosa and pull the flap down also. This is the bone that has been identified, and these things came away when we raised the flap, and this is the actual pathology. See, almost there is no frontal beak. Little more we can drill when what we have here, all we can drill. Make this wider. Make this wider. So this is the frontal sinus which we had to open out. You can see in the navigation that this is anterior part of the pathology. Okay. Straight forceps. So these are the bones which we can drill out and make this wider. So this is the actual frontal sinus. Now I am drilling the frontal outflow. Water. So that's a frontal sinus as seen with a 0-degree scope. You can see the pulsation most likely due to the intracranial communication. Upturn forceps. I'm not operating the debrider. I'm moving it in such a way I am moving to the middle of this frontal sinus, at the same time away from that intracranial, using the navigation. Wash. You can see there is some pus coming, mostly from that wash. Okay, I am seeing the coronal, and I will make sure I don't go into the intracranium while I do this debriding. Wash. So that is the one more thing is the cutting window is kept anterior. I can rotate it from here, from outside. See, I can rotate it so that it is not facing posterior, so that it will not damage the intracranial. Now I will use the burr, open some more of this nasavion bone, and that way I can see better inside. Then I can do more work. Burr, same burr. I am just working laterally to remove the thick nasavion bone. In this case, his anatomy there is a little more bone lateral. So as much as I can make the frontal sinus open, it is easy for me to dissect laterally with these curved debrided instruments. So it's surprising that we are able to do all this with a 0 degree telescope. Very nice to see how much these little tools can change the surgical situation for us. This opening I have created is almost 10 millimeter in dia, and it's impossible for it to stenose and close, especially with the mucosal flap hanging on the inferior turbinate waiting to come up and cover this. It will not get into bone strictures. Okay, now I am using the navigable suction on, suction. This is probably the calcified material you saw in the CT. Wash. See where we are. See that we have reached the end of the if you see the navigation, the suction has gone to the end of lateral part of the frontal. This superior, you can see also most of it. Surprising that you can see all this with a 0, which makes things so simple. These are the radio dense shadows that has been removed. This sinus is fully cleared, and if I put a irrigation inside, this should settle down. Now let us go to the opposite side. I am pushing some of this mucosa into the frontal duct so that this will never get stenosed. Otherwise, what you can do, you can push it posteriorly. So all the debrided lateral walls are now covered by intact mucosa. We can put some gel foam and some little pack there which will hold it in place. This I don't want because this will form a cross barrier. So this should be good enough for this frontal sinus. It's wonderfully adequate in my opinion. Thanks for this flap.